Oh honey, there I stood at the back of that sun-dappled chapel, my fingers white-knuckled around a bouquet of wilting daisies I'd picked from the roadside just to have something to hold, the organ swelling like a heart about to burst while 200 faces turned, expectant and glowing with borrowed joy. My husband, no my ex by then though the ink on those papers was still wet, was at the altar in his rented tux, beaming down at my cousin Tessa in her lace gown, the one she'd twirled in front of me just weeks before, asking if it made her look like a princess. And me? I was the ghost in the pews, the one who traded silent suffering for a quiet storm of evidence tucked in my purse, voicemails that dripped with whispers I'd never forget, photos sharp as knives from that motel bed where I'd found them tangled like vines. One step forward and the world tilted, the truth spilling out not in screams, but in the steady click of my heels on the aisle runner, a revelation that freed me from the cage of blind trust I'd built our life on. But child, that crash wasn't born of rage alone. It was the ache of a woman reclaiming her name from the footnotes of someone else's lie. Looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. That summer when everything still hummed with the promise of easy tomorrows. My name's Lorraine. Lori to the folks who knew me before the lines etched deeper around my eyes. And at 38, I'd settled into a rhythm that felt like grace after the chaos of my 20s. Marcus and I met in the produce aisle of the corner market, him juggling a cantaloupe that threatened to roll away, me steadying it with a laugh that cut through the fluorescent hum. He was 35 then, with hands rough from framing houses and a smile that crinkled the corners of his hazel eyes, the kind that made you believe in second chances. Careful there, I'd said, handing it back, our fingers brushing just long enough to spark. 3 months of porch swings and late-night drives later, we were married in a backyard ceremony under string lights, the air thick with jasmine and the tang of barbecue ribs his brother grilled to perfection. Our home was a modest ranch on Elmwood Lane, the kind with creaky screen doors and a kitchen that smelled of simmering pots on Sundays, collards slow-cooked with smoked turkey, cornbread golden and crisp at the edges. Marcus worked construction, coming home with dust in his hair and stories of crooked beams straightened by sheer will, while I managed the books at the local library, surrounded by the soft rustle of pages and the faint must of old ink. We didn't have much, no kids yet, though we talked about it in whispers over coffee, his hand tracing lazy circles on my knee, but what we had felt solid, like the oak he'd planted in the yard our first spring, its roots digging deep without fanfare. Family was our anchor. Sunday suppers at my auntie's, where laughter bounced off the floral wallpaper and plates passed heavy with fried chicken and potato salad. Tessa always the spark at the table with her quick wit and curls that bounced like they carried secrets. Tessa was 26 then, my cousin by blood and closer than most sisters, the one who'd shared my dorm room stories and heartbreak anthems back in college. She worked as a barista downtown, her apron dusted with espresso grounds, dreaming of opening her own cafe someday. Something cozy with mismatched mugs and poetry slams on rainy nights. We'd grown up thick as thieves, trading clothes and confidences under the willow tree in Auntie's backyard, her laughter a melody that chased away my storms. When Marcus came along, she was our biggest cheerleader, toasting us at the reception with a glass of cheap champagne, her eyes shining. "To love that sticks," she'd said, clinking mine, the bubbles fizzing sharp on my tongue. In those early years, life wove us tighter. Holidays where she'd crash on our couch after too much eggnog, her head on my lap as we watched old movies, the glow of the TV flickering blue across her face. Barbecues where Marcus flipped burgers with that easy grin, Tessa teasing him about his fancy grill marks while I poured sweet tea, condensation beating cold on the pitcher. Mornings were my favorite, the quiet ones where sunlight slanted through the gingham curtains, painting the linoleum in honeyed stripes. I'd wake to the percolator's gurgle, the rich aroma pulling Marcus from bed, his footsteps heavy on the floorboards as he shuffled in, scratching his stubble with a yawn that rumbled low. "Morning beautiful," he'd murmur, stealing a kiss that tasted of sleep and promise, his arms wrapping loose around my waist while I cracked eggs into the skillet, the sizzle a soft underscore to our plans for the day. We'd linger over toast, his buttered thick, mine with a scrape of jam, the radio humming gospel tunes faint in the background, his boot tapping time under the table. It was in those pockets of ordinary that I felt safest, the world outside fading to the rhythm of our shared breath, the way his thumb brushed mine passing the salt. No grand gestures, just the steady build of a life where trust wasn't questioned. It was the air we breathed, invisible until you tried to live without it. Family reunions were the heartbeat of it all, those sprawling gatherings at Lakeview Park every Labor Day, where picnic tables groaned under coolers of ribs and deviled eggs, the lake's breeze carrying laughter and the smoky char of the grills. Aunties' brood would spill out, uncles in faded caps swapping fishing tails, cousins chasing kids with water guns that spat arcs against the sun. Tessa and I would claim our spot under the big oak, spreading a quilt worn soft from years of use, our plates piled with watermelon slices that dripped pink juice down our chins. Marcus fit right in, his laugh booming as he arm-wrestled my Uncle Joe, sweat beading on his forehead, while I'd watch from the sidelines, my heart swelling at how he claimed us all. That last reunion, 3 years into our marriage, started like all the others. The drive with windows down, radio crooning Motown, Marcus's hand on my thigh as we sang off-key to Ain't No Mountain High Enough. We arrived to hugs and hollered hellos, Tessa bounding over with the cold lemonade, the condensation slick against my palm. "Lori, you made it. Saved you a spot by the water." Her hug was fierce, scented with sunscreen and her citrus shampoo. And for a moment everything aligned, the sun warm on my shoulders, the promise of another season of us. But oh child, even then the air held a whisper of something off, like a note played just a hair flat in an otherwise perfect song. Marcus lingered longer at the grill that day, his glances toward Tessa's laughter carrying a beat too long, her hand brushing his arm as she passed the tongs, a touch that lingered in my mind like a smudge on glass. I shook it off, blaming the heat that pressed heavy, turning cheeks flushed and tempers short. Still, as the afternoon stretched lazy, with kids shrieking from the dock and the lake lapping gentle at the shore, a quiet unease settled in my chest, faint as the first crinkle of autumn in summer leaves. That unease, child, it started as a flutter, light as a moth against the screen, easy to brush away with a sip of lemonade and the distraction of Auntie's call for the pie-eating contest. But as the sun dipped lower, painting the lake in strokes of copper and rose, it clung, a faint itch under my skin I couldn't quite scratch. Marcus had wandered off after lunch, saying something about helping Uncle Joe with the cooler, his voice casual over the din of splashing kids and clinking bottles. I watched him go, his broad shoulders cutting through the crowd, the way he paused to ruffle a niece's hair, steady like always. Tessa was beside me then, fanning herself with a paper plate, her sundress fluttering light against her thighs, the fabric dotted with tiny lemons that caught the light. "Hot one today," she said, her laugh a little breathy, eyes scanning the water where the younger cousins cannonballed in. I nodded, wiping a bead of sweat from my temple with the back of my wrist, the air thick with chlorine and charcoal smoke. "Always is. You holding up? That espresso shift must have drained you." She shrugged, her curls shifting with the motion, a strand sticking damp to her neck. "Nah, this is my recharge. Family chaos beats steam wands any day." But her gaze flicked toward the grills, quick as a hummingbird, and there was Marcus stacking chairs with Joe, his laugh carrying back on the breeze, deep rumbling, the one that used to make my stomach flip in the best way. Something in her smile then, the way it lingered a beat too soft, tugged at that flutter in my chest. I turned away, blaming the glare off the water that made everything shimmer false, and busied myself folding the quilt, the fabric warm and sunbaked under my palms. Just the heat, I told myself, folding neat corners, the threads whispering soft against each other. Playing tricks, making shadows where there's none. The afternoon dragged on in fits of normalcy. Relay races where I cheered horse for the kids, their feet pounding the grass to wet thuds. Plates of pie passed around, the crust flaky and sweet with blackberries that stained lips purple. Marcus reappeared for the sack race, tying knots in the burlap with those sure hands, his eyes meeting mine across the field with a wink that crinkled his nose. "Your money's on me, right, Lori?" he called, and I laughed, the sound genuine but edged, clapping as he hopped awkward, burlap bunching at his knees. Tessa was judging nearby, her whistle shrill between laughs, her hand steadying a racer who stumbled. Nothing out of place, yet the air between them hummed different, like a radio tune just off station, static under the melody. I caught it in glimpses, her leaning in to murmur something as he retied a sack, his head tilting close, the brush of her fingers on his forearm lingering a fraction past helpful. My throat tightened then, a sip of water doing little to loosen it, the plastic cup crinkling faint in my grip. By evening, as the sky bruised purple and lanterns strung between trees flickered to life, The reunion wound down to quieter pockets. Folks sprawled on blankets, guitars strumming lazy blues, the lake a dark mirror reflecting firefly sparks. I'd wandered off for a moment, needing air away from the smoke, my sandals sinking soft into the cooling grass as I headed toward the tree line. The path was dim, lit only by the glow from the pavilion, and that's when I heard it first, a murmur low and intimate, carried on the hush of leaves. I paused, heart picking up a notch, the air cooler here scented with pine and damp earth. Voices familiar. Marcus's rumble, Tessa's lighter lilt, overlapping in a rhythm that felt too close, too unguarded for cousins-in-law. Can't keep doing this, he was saying, words muffled but sharp like a door half shut. Her reply came soft, insistent. But we are. And it's good, isn't it? Makes me feel alive. I froze, my breath shallow against the bark of an oak I leaned into, rough and grounding under my palm. The flutter exploded then, wings battering frantic in my ribs. What this? But I held still, ears straining over the distant strum of guitar. Footsteps crunched closer, gravel under boots and a pause heavy as held breath. Then the unmistakable rustle of fabric, a sigh that tangled with the night's hush, and the soft press of lips, wet, urgent, unmistakable. My mind reeled, piecing it wrong at first. A hug? A joke gone affectionate? But the sounds built, undeniable. A murmur turning to a gasp, hands whispering over cloth, the faint creak of a tree trunk giving under weight. Shock rooted me there, cold as the dew beating on my arms, the world narrowing to that shadowed spot 20 feet away, silhouettes merging in the lantern spill like smoke. Disbelief crashed next, hot and choking, my hand flying to my mouth to trap the gasp that clawed up. Not Marcus. Not Tessa. The boy who'd steadied my cantaloupe, the cousin who'd braided my hair through fevers. They wouldn't. I backed away slow, sandals silent on moss, the oak's bark snagging my sleeve like a warning. Back at the pavilion, I slipped into the crowd unnoticed, the guitar's twang now jarring, laughter grating like sand. Marcus emerged minutes later, hair tousled just so, clapping Joe on the back with a grin that looked painted on. Tessa followed, smoothing her dress, her cheeks flushed like from the heat alone. Our eyes met across the fire pit, hers widening a fraction. Guilt? Surprise? Before she looked away, busying with a lantern wick, I forced a smile when Marcus draped an arm around me, his skin warm and familiar against my shoulder. But inside, the world tilted, trust fracturing like thin ice underfoot. That night, driving home with windows cracked to the cricket chorus, the cab filled with his easy chatter about the races, I nodded along, my fingers tight on the wheel, knuckles pale as bone. The signs replayed in loops, the lingering glances at suppers, his late calls from job sites that smelled of her cafe's vanilla roast when he kissed me goodnight, her sudden silences when I mentioned our plans, her hugs holding a beat too long. I'd ignored them all, chalking to family closeness, the way bonds blur in small towns where everyone's kin. But now, with the taste of blackberry pie souring on my tongue, doubt bloomed dark and insistent, a shadow lengthening across the dashboard glow. What if? The question looped, soft as the engine's hum, but I swallowed it down, focusing on the road's yellow line snaking ahead. Tomorrow I'd ask, gentle over breakfast, his hand in mine. Or maybe let it fade, a trick of twilight and too much sun. Sleep came fitful that night, the sheets twisting around me like unanswered whys, the clock's tick marking seconds into suspicion's slow unravel. The week blurred after, each day a careful dance around the growing rift. Marcus rose early for work, his kiss on my cheek brisk, coffee mug steaming in his grip as he mumbled about a new site downtown, closer to Tessa's cafe I'd noted once but brushed off. I'd linger in the kitchen, the percolator's drip echoing hollow, staring at the empty chair where he'd sit, butter knife scraping toast in rhythm to his stories. Now silence amplified it all. The faint scent of her citrus clinging to his collar when he shrugged off his jacket, the way his phone buzzed more at odd hours, screen lighting his face in the dim living room as he checked emails. I'd catch myself watching, heart a dull thud, pretending to read while noting the curve of his thumb swiping notifications away. Tessa texted once. Missed you at the park today. Lunch soon? Her emoji a winking sun that twisted in my gut like a hook. I replied neutral, thumbs hovering long over the send button. The screen's glow cold against my palm. Doubt festered quiet, fed by small thefts. A forgotten flannel of his at her place, mentioned casual in a group chat. Her laugh on his voicemail, tinny through the wall one night, cut short when I stirred. I tried ignoring, filling days with library shifts, the soft thump of returned books, the hush of patrons lost in pages, but it shadowed me, a weight in my chest that made breaths shallow. Evenings we'd eat in front of the TV, his arm around me loose, but I'd feel the distance, a chasm widening with every unasked question. Trust him, I'd whisper in her, stirring soup that steamed too hot, the spoon clinking against the pot like accusation. He's yours. But the flutter had grown wings now, battering insistent, and by week's end, as another family invite pinged, dinner at Auntie's, Tessa hosting, I knew the ignoring had run its course. The reunion's echo called me back, demanding I face the static, before it drowned the song entire. The invite to that second reunion, a smaller one, Auntie's birthday bash at the old lakeside cabin, landed in my inbox like a stone in still water, ripples spreading slow but insistent. It was 2 weeks after the first, the calendar marking time with indifferent ticks, but my days had blurred into a haze of watchful quiet. Marcus had been sweeter lately, almost too much. Flowers on the counter one Tuesday, wilting daisies that echoed the roadside bouquet from my mind's eye. His arms pulling me close at night with murmurs of "missed you today." I'd lean into it, the warmth of his chest against my back a temporary dam against the flood. But sleep evaded, leaving me staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, shadows wheeling like unanswered questions. Tessa's texts tapered off, casual check-ins replaced by radio silence, which only sharpened the blade of doubt. Coincidence, I'd tell myself over morning coffee, the mug ceramic hot against my palms, steam curling up to fog the window where dew beaded like unshed tears. But the flutter had settled into a steady thrum now, a pulse that urged confrontation without a map. I almost begged off the party, citing a headache that throbbed real enough from the tension coiling in my neck, but Marcus's eyes pleaded over breakfast, earnest, hazel depths crinkled with that boyish hope. Come on, Lori. Auntie's turning 65, it'll be fun. Like old times. His fork paused over scrambled eggs, fluffy and golden from the pan I just pulled, the scent of butter lingering faint. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat with a sip of juice, tart and pulpy on my tongue. Old times. The words hung, laced with irony I couldn't voice, and so I went, packing a cooler with lemonade and Auntie's favorite lemon bars, the crust crumbly under my knife as I sliced, each cut a small release. The drive was quiet, radio low on soul tunes that tugged at heartstrings, his hand on the gearshift brushing mine accidental, or not, as we wound through pines that whispered secrets to the wind. The cabin nestled by the water like a memory worn smooth, its wraparound porch sagging gentle under strings of bulbs that glowed amber as dusk crept in. Cars dotted the gravel lot, kin spilling out with coolers and covered dishes, the air alive with hollered greetings and the slap of screen doors. Auntie enveloped me first, her hug bone crush and scented with lavender soap, her laugh rumbling deep as she pressed a kiss to my cheek. Lori girl, you look like you need a plate and a prayer. I smiled, the motion automatic, helping her set the long picnic table under the oaks, checkered cloths flapping soft in the breeze, bowls of potato salad creamy and studded with celery crunch, rib sauce sticky from the smoker Joe tended with a beer in hand. Tessa was there, of course, flitting like a moth to the lanterns, her sundress a soft blue this time, curls pinned back with a clip that caught the light. Our eyes met as she passed the deviled eggs, her smile faltering just a hair. Guilt's flicker or my imagination? Before she murmured, "Hey cousin. Glad you came." Her voice was light, but her fingers trembled faint on the tray, a yolk slipping to roll toward the edge. Marcus dove and easy as always, clapping backs and pouring drinks, his laugh booming over the clink of ice in glasses. I watched from the sidelines at first, nursing a plastic cup of tea sweetened just right, the condensation slick against my skin as fireflies began their dance. The evening unfolded in layers. Toasts around the fire pit, flames crackling orange and spitting sparks that died quick in the night. Stories swapped in low voices, Uncle Joe's tale of a legendary fish that got away drawing chuckles that warmed the chill settling in my bones. Tessa sat across from us on a log bench, her knees drawn up casual, but her glances toward Marcus carried weight, lingering loaded the way a hand hovers before touching flame. He met them once or twice, a shared smile that twisted something deep in my gut, hot and nauseous like bad seafood. I excused myself midway through the pie course, the blackberry filling too tart on my tongue, mumbling about checking on the cooler by the cabin steps. The path was dim, lit only by the porch's spill, gravel crunching soft under my sneakers as the party's hum faded to a distant murmur. That's when the cabin door creaked open ahead, a wedge of yellow light slicing the dark, spilling voices that stopped me cold. Marcus's low timbre, Tessa's softer cadence, overlapping in a hush too intimate for kin. "Been waiting all night," she was saying, words breathy against the night's hush, the door easing shut behind them with a click that echoed like a lock turning. My heart slammed once, twice, the cup slipping from my fingers to thud soft on the path, tea soaking dark into the dirt. I moved without thought, feet silent on the dew-slick grass skirting the porch, the wood's underbelly groaning faint as I crouched near the window, its sill rough under my palms. Curtains gapped just enough, lace fluttering like a veil lifted, and through it, oh child, the sight that shattered me whole. They were inside the guest room, the one with the quilted bed Auntie kept for overflow, its frame brass and creaking under their weight. Marcus's shirt half unbuttoned, Tessa's hands tracing the lines of his chest, her dress hiked as she pressed against him, lips meeting in a kiss that devoured, urgent, hungry, the kind that leaves bruises. The air smelled of pine and her citrus, mingling with the faint musk of desire, and sounds spilled unbidden. A sigh from her, ragged and low, his murmur, "God, Tess," muffled against her neck. Shock hit first, a wave crashing cold and absolute, rooting me to the spot as my mind reeled, piecing fragments into horror. This is real, this is them, this is us undone. Disbelief followed, choking thick in my throat, tears blurring the glass until I pressed closer, breath fogging the pain in shallow bursts. Not here. Not now. Not family. I don't know how long I stood there, seconds? Minutes? The world narrowing to that window's frame, heart hammering so loud I feared they'd hear. Then a branch snapped under my foot, dry and sharp as a gunshot in the quiet, and their heads jerked toward the sound, eyes wide in the lamplight's glow. Marcus pulled away first, fumbling for his shirt, Tessa scrambling to smooth her dress, her face paling to ash. The door flew open before I could flee, him bursting out with wild eyes. "Lori? What?" But I was already rising, tears hot on my cheeks, the gravel biting through my sneakers as I backed away. The cup spilled dark at my feet like spilled blood. "How long?" My voice came steady, surprising even me, low, even laced with the steel I'd forged in silent nights. He froze, mouth working soundless, while Tessa hovered in the doorway, arms crossed tight over her chest, eyes downcast but flickering with something, regret? Defiance. "Months," he admitted finally, the word dropping heavy between us, his hands raking through his hair, disheveled now in the porch light. "Lori, please, it's not what." But I cut him with a look, sharp as the knife I'd used on those lemon bars, stepping closer until the scent of her clung to him like accusation. "Not what? Not you in there with my cousin on family ground." My voice cracked then, the dam breaking, tears spilling free as I turned to her, the girl who'd shared my secrets now guarding her own. "Tessa? Why, we were sisters." She met my eyes at last, hers brimming but unspilling, her lip trembling faint. "I didn't plan it, Lori. Just happened." The laughs, the talks, he saw me, really saw. "I'm sorry." Sorry. The word hung limp, insufficient as a bandage on a gaping wound, and heartbreak bloomed full then, a hollow ache that stole my breath, knees buckling until I gripped the porch rail, wood splintering faint under my nails. The confrontation spilled raw from there, voices rising in fits over the distant party hum, his pleas tumbling desperate. "I love you, Lori, this was a mistake, a slip?" Her whispers overlapping. "We can fix this, keep it quiet for the family." My questions lashing back, each one a lash to my own skin as much as theirs. How many nights? How many lies in our bed? The air thickened with it, the lake's lap mocking our turmoil, fireflies winking indifferent. Disbelief warred with fury, but beneath pulsed a deeper wound. The betrayal not just of body, but of blood. The cousin who'd held my hand through losses now carving her own. By the time Auntie called out from the trees, "Dessert's waiting, y'all." We'd fractured silent, him slumping against the rail, Tessa vanishing inside with a sob caught in her throat. I wiped my face on my sleeve, the cotton rough against salt-streaked skin, and walked back to the lights alone, the gravel path endless under my feet. The pie waited untouched, its slice congealing sweet and false, while inside, the pieces of me scattered, waiting for the will to gather them sharp. The rest of that night blurred into a watercolor of forced smiles and half-hearted claps, the cabin's porch lights casting long shadows that danced mocking across my face as I rejoined the circle around the fire pit. Auntie pressed a slice of her birthday cake into my hands, chocolate layers dense and fudgy, the frosting sweetness cloying on my tongue, but I chewed mechanical, the fork's tine scraping porcelain faint while laughter swelled around me like a tide I couldn't swim. Marcus sat across the flames, his profile etched sharp in the orange glow, eyes avoiding mine as he poked at the embers with a stick that snapped and sparked. Tessa had vanished into the kitchen, her absence a hole in the chatter, emerging later with fresh coffee that steamed bitter in mugs passed hand to hand. Our glances met once, hers pleading silent over the rim of her cup, mine steady but hollow, the steam curling between us like unspoken indictments. I nodded once, a small concession to the night's fragile peace, and turned to Uncle Joe's yarn about a storm that flooded the old mill, his voice rumbling low over the crackle, but my mind wandered the path back to that window, replaying the press of bodies, the sigh that wasn't mine. Driving home, the cab thick with unspoken weight, Marcus reached for the radio dial, fingers brushing mine on the knob, accidental, or testing. And I pulled away, the leather seat creaking under my shift. "Lori," he started, voice rough as gravel, the headlights carving tunnels through the dark pines. "Tonight, we need to talk. Proper." I stared at the road unspooling black ahead, the dashboard's green glow illuminating my knuckles white on the wheel. Talk? Or explain? The words came even, laced with the calm I'd mustered from some deep well, but inside turmoil churned, a storm of hurt and fury vying for release. He sighed, long and ragged, rubbing his jaw where stubble shadowed blue. "Both. I messed up bad. It started small, talks at the cafe, her listening when work ground me down. One thing led. God, Lori, I'm sorry. It ends now. Sorry." Again the word fell flat, insufficient as rain on fire, and I let silence stretch, the engines hum the only bridge between us. "Ends now?" Inner doubt whispered sharp as thorns. "After months of stolen breaths you think words seal it shut?" We didn't speak more that night, the key turning in the lock a punctuation to the quiet war brewing. Sleep evaded me fully, the sheets cool and foreign against my skin, his snores from the couch in the den a distant rumble that mocked my wakefulness. Dawn crept gray through the blinds, slats striping the floor like bars, and I rose early, the percolators drip a solitary rhythm in the kitchen's hush. Coffee black and scalding in my mug, I sat at the table scarred from years of meals, the wood's grain swirling like secrets under my fingertips. Reaction simmered then, not wild blaze but steady coal. Do nothing and it festers, lash out and I lose myself. Inner monologue looped, measured breaths cooling the heat. Gather proof, not screams. Let truth be the blade, not blind swings. By the time he shuffled in, eyes bleary and shadowed, I'd decided. No immediate storm but a quiet investigation, evidence as armor for whatever came. The days unspooled deliberate after, each one a step in the plan's careful weave. I started small, casual as breath, slipping into his phone during his shower, the water's patter masking the soft chime of passcode entry, his birthday easy to guess. Text scrolled innocuous at first. "Missed you at lunch next time?" From her number, hearts emoji winking innocent. His replies clipped, busy site, rain check. But deeper, in deleted threads I'd recover with a library app I'd downloaded quiet on my break. The hush of the stacks a veil for my search, lay the trail. Late night calls logged at 2 a.m., her voice memos breathy with "I need you," photos timestamped to motel rooms, her arm draped over his in sheets rumpled white. Each find landed like a stone in my chest, heavy but grounding, tears pricked but unshed as I screenshot. Folder named innocuous. Recipes on my own device, the screen's glow cold against my palm in the dim car after work. Dialogue crept in measured, over dinners where I'd plate his favorites. Roast chicken crisp-skinned, greens wilted soft with garlic. But my questions lanced gentle, probing without accusation. "Long day at the site?" I'd ask, passing the salt, watching his fork pause midair. The crystals glinting under the pendant light. "Yeah, pouring concrete, back's killing me." A lie, thin as the steam rising from his plate, confirmed by a time-stamped photo from her cafe that afternoon. His truck parked out front in the app's geotag. I'd nod, swallowing the bile of it with a sip of water, the glass sweating beads that mirrored my restraint. Tessa reached out once, a voicemail left hesitant on my line. Lori? Hey, it's me. About the cabin. I know you saw. Can we talk? Please. Her voice cracked on the last, young and frayed, and I listened in the parking lot after closing, rain pattering soft on the library roof, the phone heavy in my lap. Talk? The urge to hurl back rose, but I deleted it instead, pocketing the hurt like a key for later. Inner resolve hardened. Not yet. Let them weave their web tighter. Blind to the scissors I'd sharpen. Word came casual a week later, over coffee with Auntie. Her kitchen scented with baking bread. The oven's warmth chasing the autumn chill seeping through the panes. Tessa's engaged, she said. Eyes sparkling over her mug, steam curling white. To Marcus, can you believe? Rushed it after the cabin, says it's fate catching up. The mug slipped in my grip, hot liquid sloshing to scald my thumb, but pain was distant, drowned by the roar in my ears. Engaged. To him. The pieces slotted cruel. Their mistake blooming to vows, my life the footnote erased. Auntie prattled on, small ceremony at the lakeside chapel, 200 kin invited, her dress a vision of lace, but I heard fragments, nodding numb as the bread cooled forgotten on the rack. Rushed elopement, inner thought anchored me, the plan crystallizing sharp. Wait for the altar, their perfect stage, and unveil there. Not in whispers but witnessed justice in the light of day. Action took shape, quiet, methodical. Printing voicemails transcribed raw on crisp paper. The printers were a secret hum in the library's back office. Photos developed at the corner shop. Clerks nod casual as I paid cash. The envelope heavy in my purse like contraband. I confided in no one, not even Sarah from work, whose sympathetic ear I'd leaned on for book recommendations. The weight was mine to carry, the release mine to time. Marcus moved out midweek, suitcases thumping down the hall stairs, his eyes pleading over the banister. Lori, this doesn't have to end us. I can fix. But I cut him gentle, hand on the door as rain sheeted the glass behind. Fix? With what? More sorries. Go build your fate, Marcus. I'll find mine. The door clicked shut soft, but inside fury tempered to steel. Let them plan their joy. I'll gift the truth. The weeks to the wedding stretched taut. Invitations arriving crisp in cream envelopes. My name scrawled polite on the inner flap like an afterthought. I RSVP'd yes, the card's edge cutting my thumb faint as I sealed it. Blood beating red against white. Rehearsals passed in periphery. Auntie's excited calls, Tessa's text tentative with can't wait to see you there. But I held distance, filling evenings with therapy sessions in a quiet office downtown. The counselor's lamp casting warm pools on the rug as I unpacked the tangle. Anger as protector, she said soft, her pen scratching notes, and I nodded, the chairs weave imprinting my palms. Not revenge, I clarified inner, driving home through fog that clung to the windshield wiper's swipe. Justice. For the woman they buried alive. Evidence mounted. A final voicemail saved, her voice giddy now. Can't believe it's real, babe. Tucked with the rest in a velvet pouch, small as a bridesmaid's gift. The eve before I stood in my bedroom, the oak's branches scratching faint at the window like impatient fingers, laying out the simple black dress I'd wear. Fitted sheath, pearls at the throat like armor. The pouch weighed light in my hand, contents a Pandora's box of proof, and I slipped it into my clutch, the zipper's rasp final as a vow. Sleep came shallow, dreams tangled with lace and lake water, waking to birdsong sharp through the curtains, the mirror reflecting eyes steady, lined with purpose. Tomorrow, inner resolve whispered as I smoothed my hair. The brush's bristles tugging gentle. Not for ruin but release. The drive to the chapel wound through mist-shrouded fields. The air crisp with fallen leaves crunching under tires. 200 cars already lining the lot like sentinels. I parked at the edge, heart a steady drum, and stepped out, heels sinking soft into gravel, the pouch a talisman against my side. The organ swelled distant, vows waiting. And with it my truth ready to crash the perfect lie. The chapel door stood open like expectant mouths, swallowing guests in waves of pastel dresses and pressed suits, the murmur of voices blending with the rustle of leaves skittering across the lot in the autumn gust. I lingered at the threshold, my black sheath dress whispering against my legs as I smoothed the fabric one last time, the pearls cool and smooth under my fingertips, A touchstone against the tremor starting in my knees. 200 faces, kin and community woven tight from years of shared suppers and Sunday services, filed toward the pews. Auntie's sister in her wide-brim hat, nodding hellos. Neighbors from Elmwood Lane, their whispers carrying on the breeze like pollen. The air held crisp bite, scented with chrysanthemums from the altar arrangements and the faint, underlying tang of nerves, perfume mingling with coffee breath, the organ's prelude swelling soft from within. I slipped in last among the stragglers, the usher's program crinkling in my hand as he guided me to a side pew midway back, the wood worn smooth from countless palms. Marcus stood at the front, tall in his charcoal tux, his profile sharp against the stained glass glow, a smile fixed as he scanned the crowd, landing on me for a beat, eyes widening faint with something unreadable before flicking away. Tessa waited in the vestibule, her gown a cascade of ivory lace that caught the light like fresh snow, her curls pinned with baby's breath that trembled slight in the draft. She looked every inch the bride, radiant and resolved, her hand resting light on her father's arm as he adjusted his tie, pride etching lines deeper around his eyes. Our gazes crossed then, hers softening with a tentative smile. "Cousin, family, forgive?" And I returned it measured, a nod that held no warmth but no blade either, my clutch heavy in my lap like a stone smoothed by river. The processional began, strings sighing Mendelssohn as bridesmaids glided forward in sage silk, bouquets of cream roses nodding heavy. Tessa stepped into the aisle, her veil a gossamer trail, the congregation rising with a rustle of hymnals and sighs of awe. Marcus turned fully then, his face alight with what looked like love, genuine or practiced. His hand extending as if to pull her into forever. The organ crested, vows hovering on the air like held breath. And that's when I rose slow and deliberate, the pew creaking soft under my shift. Heads turned gradual at first. A murmur here, a glance there. But as my heels clicked steady down the runner, the hush deepened, rippling outward like a pebble in a pond. 200 pairs of eyes tracked me now, confusion knitting brows, whispers threading the silence. "Lori? What's she?" Marcus's smile faltered midway, his arm dropping as recognition dawned, color draining from his face to leave it ashen against the black bow tie. Tessa halted mid-aisle, her bouquet trembling in her grip, petals shedding faint to the carpet like confetti turned traitor. The officiant paused, Bible open in veined hands, his voice trailing into question. "Lorraine." But I kept walking, pace even, the clutch unzipped now in my palm, the pouch's contents spilling light. Papers crisp, photos glossy, voicemails queued on my phone's screen glowing blue. The air thickened, charged as before a storm, the stained glass filtering colors that danced fractured across the floor. Ruby on my shoes, sapphire on the runner, like judgment's own palette. I stopped at the altar's edge, close enough to smell Marcus's cologne, sandalwood and citrus, the same he'd worn on our wedding day, and Tessa's bouquet, roses heavy with dew. "Before you say I do," I began, voice steady as the organ's dying note, carrying clear to the rafters, "there's truth that needs its place at this table." Gasps dotted the pews. Auntie's hand flying to her mouth, Uncle Joe's chair scraping back. But I held their eyes, scanning the sea of faces etched with shock, then back to the two at the heart. Marcus stepped forward, hand raised placating. "Lori, not here, please," his whisper urgent, eyes darting to the crowd like a cornered thing. But Tessa stood frozen, her veil slipping faint over one eye, the baby's breath wilting under the chapel's draft. "Truth," I echoed, softer now, pulling the first photo free. A motel print, timestamp 3 months back, their forms blurred but unmistakable in the rumpled sheets. I held it up, not thrusting but offering, the flash of recognition rippling through kin like a wave. Murmurs swelling to exclamations, a cousin's sob cutting sharp. "Months," I continued, tone even, letting the word land heavy as the Bible in the officiant's limp grip. "Stolen in shadows while I planned our life, trusted our bond." The voicemails next. Phone raised, volume low but piercing in the hush, her voice spilling tinny. "Miss you already, babe, hurry back." Gasps turned to cries, Auntie's fan snapping shut like a judgment, neighbors shifting uneasy in their seats. Marcus's face crumpled then, hands raking through his hair. A low God no escaping ragged as he sank to one knee, not in proposal but defeat. Tessa's bouquet slipped from numb fingers, stems scattering with a dry rustle, her hands twisting the veil's edge white-knuckled. Lori, we didn't mean, she stammered, voice breaking on the we. Eyes pleading now with the cousin she'd betrayed. But I shook my head gentle, the pearls shifting cool against my throat. Didn't mean? Or couldn't stop. It ends here, not in whispers but seen, so we all heal from the light. Chaos bloomed then, dignified in its unraveling, no shouts but a swell of voices overlapping like a choir gone discordant. Auntie's wail thin and keening. Tessa Marie, what have you done? Uncle Joe's rumble. Boy, you got some explaining. Cousins clustering in whispers that hissed like steam. The officiant closed his book with a thud that echoed, guests rising in waves. Some fleeing toward doors that creaked open to the lot's gravel crunch, others frozen in pews, faces a mosaic of pity and outrage. Marcus reached for me once, fingers grazing my arm, desperate, clammy, but I stepped back, the contact breaking like a snapped thread. No more touches that lie, I said soft, for him alone, then turned to Tessa, her gown pooling now like spilled milk around her knees as she sank to the runner. We were family, Tess. Blood and choice. This chooses for us. Her sob came then, muffled into her hands, curls tumbling free from pins that scattered like lost hopes. The public fracture spread swift after, kin converging in knots by the altar, embraces for me, backs turned to them, whispers threading blame like needles. How could she with her own kin? He fooled us all, that smile of his. Justice hung in the air, not vengeful fire but the cool clarity of exposure. Consequences etching lines on faces I'd known since cradle. Auntie pulled me aside near the vestibule, her arms fierce around my shoulders, the lavender soap now mingled with tears. Oh child, I'm sorry, blind to it all. I held her, the hug grounding as the earth's turn, murmuring. Not your sight to catch, Auntie. Mine to mend now. Marcus faced the brunt quiet, uncles clapping his back turned to shoves, cousins' glares sharp as they filed out, the chapel emptying to echoes and the faint scent of wilted flowers. Tessa huddled with her father, his arm around her rigid, his face thunderous as he led her away, the gown trailing dust from the runner like a defeated banner to be why the time the lot cleared, gravel crunching under retreating heels, the sun slanting low through the trees in shafts of gold and shadow. I stood alone at the altar's edge, the scattered petals underfoot soft as forgiveness deferred. Dignity held me upright. Not triumph but release, the weight of secrets lifted to scatter like those pins. A few lingered, Sarah from the library, pressing a card into my hand with the hug that smelled of vanilla. Old Mr. Hargrove from church, nodding solemn. Strength and truth, Lori. Always. Their words wove a quiet net, catching the fall without cruelty. The consequences moral mirrors reflecting back not monsters, but flawed souls laid bare. As the doors swung shut final behind the last guest, the chapel's hush settling like dust, I gathered the photos from the floor, gentle, folding them neat into the pouch, and walked out into the light, heels steady on the path, the air crisp with promise of rain. Chaos had reigned, yes, but in its wake, justice breathed clean if bittersweet, the first step from wreckage to wings. The drive home from that chapel felt endless, the road unspooling gray and indifferent under tires that hummed a low dirge, the sun dipping low to paint the dashboard in fading amber strokes. My hands gripped the wheel loose now, the clutch tucked forgotten in the passenger seat, its weight lifted like a stone rolled from a grave. Rain pattered tentative against the windshield by the time I turned onto Elmwood Lane, wipers swiping rhythmic arcs that blurred the familiar houses into watercolor smears, neighbors' porches empty, leaves spiraling in eddies at the curbs. The ranch house loomed quiet at the end, its windows dark as unblinking eyes, and I sat there a moment in the idling engine's purr, the air inside thick with the faint vanilla of my perfume mingled with the chapel's lingering rose. Home, the word echoed hollow, no longer a harbor but a husk of what trust had built. Keys jingled soft in my palm as I stepped out, the gravel crunching under heels that suddenly felt too high, too sharp for the path ahead. Inside, the air hung stale, clock ticking solitary in the hall, and I moved through rooms like a visitor, trailing fingers over the kitchen counter's cool edge, where mornings had once bloomed with coffee steam. Pausing at the bedroom door, sheets still rumpled from his last night on the couch, his scent faint as a ghost. Packing came in waves over the next days, deliberate and unhurried. Boxes stacking like confessions in the living room's spill of afternoon light. I started with the small things. Books from the shelves, their spines cracked soft from library loans I'd brought home. The oak sapling pot he'd given me that first spring, its leaves drooping now in the dry air, roots tangled but salvageable. Each item carried weight. The framed photo of us at the lake, his arm around my waist, smiles wide and unknowing. I wrapped it gentle in paper, setting it aside not for keeps, but for the closure of goodbye. Calls trickled in, sympathy from kin, Auntie's voice thick on the line. Come stay, child, the door's open. Sarah's offer of wine and ears at the corner bistro, her laugh coaxing faint through tears I didn't shed. But I held solitary, the quiet a balm that soothed the raw edges, evenings spent on the porch swing creaking gentle. A mug of chamomile steaming in my lap, stars pricking the sky like hesitant promises. Blind trust, inner reflection murmured as crickets chorus soft. Built this cage but truth holds the key. The moral settled slow. Not every hand extended deserves your palm. Some grasp to pull you under. The move crystallized over coffee with my therapist, Dr. Ellis, a woman in her 50s with salt and pepper braids and eyes that held storms weathered wise. Her office scented with sage from a smoldering bundle on the sill, the chairs weave imprinting my palms as I spoke. Across the country, I said, the words tasting of salt wind and new soil. Somewhere the lake doesn't echo. She nodded, her pen scratching faint notes. The lamp's glow warm on her desk cluttered with succulents thriving stubborn. Sessions had become anchors since the crash. Weekly unspoolings where I'd traced the hurt's map. The motel beds chill in memory, Tess's plea fracturing like glass. Marcus's text post-wedding, apologetic streams I'd read but never answered, deleted with a thumb swipe final as a door slam. Reclaiming joy, she'd say soft, her voice a steady current. Starts in naming the loss, then planting where light falls. Homework came gentle. Journals filled with lists, joys stolen, joys to seed anew. Walks in the park where I'd sit on benches worn smooth, watching ducks skim the pond, their ripples widening free. Therapy wove strength thread by thread. Not erasing scars but softening their pull. Teaching that healing isn't erasure, but expansion, room made for self where betrayal carved hollow. By winter's cusp, the house sold quick. A young couple with a toddler's laugh echoing in the yard as they toured. Their wonder a mirror to what Marcus and I had once held. Boxes shipped west to California, land of endless horizons I'd seen only in postcards, the promise of ocean salt to wash old wounds. The last night, I slept in the empty space, floorboards cool under a sleeping bag. The oak outside scratching faint at the window like a farewell. Dawn broke pale, mover's truck rumbling up gravel as I locked the door final. Key heavy in my pocket like a talisman traded. The cross-country drive unfolded slow, deliberate. A pilgrimage in my old sedan. Playlists of soul crooners filling the cab with bass that vibrated my chest. Stops came unhurried. Motels with neon signs buzzing pink. Diners where waitresses poured coffee black and strong. Their nods sympathetic over plates of eggs over easy. Yolks spilling gold like second chances. Landscape shifted gradual. Pines giving to plains vast and whispering. Then mountains that clawed the sky. Each mile peeling layers of ache until the ache softened to achievable. San Francisco welcomed with fog that rolled gentle off the bay. My apartment a sunlit walk up in the Mission. Walls papered cream and windows framing murals vibrant as hope reborn. Work found me at a community center's literacy program. Shelves of books donated and dog-eared. The air humming with children's chatter and the chalky scent of erasers. Evenings wandered markets alive with tamale steam and laughter spilling Spanish. Or cliffs where waves crashed white below. Salt spray beating my lashes as I breathed deep. The horizon endless as possibility. Joy crept back in pockets. A sketch class where pencils whispered over paper. My lines curving free like rivers unchained. Brunches with neighbors. Women layered and laughing over mimosas fizzy bright. Their stories weaving mine into tapestry. Therapy continued virtual. Dr. Ellis's face pixelated but warm on the screen. Our talks turning from fracture to flourish. See the space you've claimed? She'd say, and I'd nod. The apartment's fern unfurling green in the corner. A testament to tending what roots. Tessa reached out once, months in. A letter forwarded. Her script shaky on lined paper scented faint with her citrus. Forgive me, Lori. I lost myself in the wanting, never saw the cost to you, to us. No anger rose reading it, just a quiet sorrow for the girl she'd been. The cousinship we'd shared under willows. I wrote back brief, dignified. Forgiveness isn't mine to withhold. It's yours to carry forward. Be better. Marcus's came sporadic, emails pleading amends deleted unread, until one lingered. I see now what blind trust cost. Wish you oceans of peace. I replied once final. Peace found in the seeing. Live true. No villains in the end, child. Just souls stumbling toward light. Their shadows no longer mine to chase. Healing bloomed full that first spring. Cherry blossoms drifting pink confetti from the trees lining my street. A picnic in Golden Gate Park where I spread a quilt. The same worn one from reunions. And unpacked lemon bars baked fresh. Crust flaky under my knife. Laughter came easy with new friends, the sun warm on my skin as kites wheeled overhead. And in that moment, joy reclaimed felt like coming home. Not to a house, but to the woman I'd unearthed. Stronger in the bend, wiser in the yield. The lesson lingers soft as those petals. Blind trust builds beautiful cages, but truth, however sharp, sets the wings free. Warn others, oh yes, love with eyes open. Hearts guarded but giving, for in the seeing lies the real forever.